Talking Savings Bank.
Welcome back to the programme. Now I've been joined in studio by the Taoiseach, Joan Burton. First of all, a Taoiseach the fáilte róta isteach. Can't have been very easy yesterday.
Well, first of all, the people from Cosán, which is a community education centre, it's a wonderful centre in West Halla. It's been educating people, particularly adults, I think for nearly the last 30 years. It's a wonderful community initiative in that community. There were 60 people graduating with degrees and certificates, and it was a marvellous achievement. I suppose my main regret is that I hope that their day and their families' day, because we were in the church and the award ceremony was taking place in the church right next to Cosán, that their day, which is a special day for anybody who's had anyone graduated or graduate themselves, I was just very, very sorry for them. I would say as well, Marian, that the people who were there yesterday leading the protests, they were nothing to do with the peaceful, the people who took to the streets on different occasions right around the country, who were absolutely peaceful and who were exercising their democratic right to put forward their point of view. The Gardaí who were there when we came out of the church, and Catherine Sapone and Anne-Louise Gilligan, the founders of Cosán, two marvellous women, tried to persuade the protesters to behave decently, but they were rocking the car, banging on the windows, on the doors, on the roof, trying basically, I suppose, to turn it over ultimately. And, you know, Paul Murphy is a TD. He was standing at the back with a loud hailer leading the chanting. But I can say if that's his idea of a peaceful protest, I would not like to see that norm being set for Ireland by him as the way people in Ireland protest. We are a democracy. We have differences of views. We have discussions. That's our democratic right. But also the young Gardaí who were there and all the other Gardaí who came, they were magnificent. The taunting of them, the kind of anti-women remarks that would be made. There were some women Gardaí there, as well as myself and someone who works with me. That was just horrible in terms of the mindset of the people who were on that protest, and the homophobic remarks which were going the rounds. All of this, by the way, was in an environment, in a church grounds, where there were an awful lot of young children came along, kind of aged 10 to 14. And the thing I was most terrified about was that one of those children would get hurt. There were missiles being thrown, water bottles and stuff like that, and there was also a lot of eggs being thrown. And in some cases, the protesters ended up, by the end of it, because I think they were from different ultra factions, they seemed to be throwing stuff at each other. I don't know what that was about. But, you know, normally people who arrange protests, they have some responsibility around how they're conducted. And I have to say, for a public representative smirking at that kind of action against our Gardaí, I really think perhaps he needs a rethink on it.
But when you talk about the banging and the rocking and all of that, that sounds kind of very, very scary and intimidating.
Well, it is. And, you know, the person who was with me had never experienced anything like that before. As I say, I've lived around the world. I've done a lot of different jobs, and I've been in a lot of, you know, situations at times, particularly in Africa, which were very tense. And all I can say is that the Gardaí were fantastic. They kept everything, certainly for myself and for the staff member who was with me, extremely calm, and they themselves, you know, were being rained on with eggs, and you know, there were other, not a lot, but there were some other missiles being thrown, which seemed to be water or Coke bottles, full water or full Coke bottles, and again, it was so unfair. I don't know really that many of those protesters were actually from the community in West Tala. There were people
Well,
certainly.
that would be part of his constituency, wouldn't it?
It would be, and people democratically voted him in. But I think, in a democracy, what we want is a discussion of the issues. We want a resolution of the issues. But just as the country is beginning to recover, and, the graduates who are there, just let me stress this, they were the people who were going to go on and get employment and get financial independence for themselves and for their families. My department and myself personally, I've been a long time supporter of adult education and educational opportunity, because it's one of the best ways of helping people to break out of a cycle of being unemployed.
Right.
So the people who were there, they'd worked 3-4 years for their degrees. Everybody was dressed up for the academic procession, and the smiles on their faces, the pride in their families and their children's eyes. And I think perhaps because he's such a recent deputy in that area, perhaps, Deputy Murphy doesn't quite understand the emotional significance. He's somebody who was privileged to go, I think, probably straight from school to college. And I don't know if he appreciates the effort that people put in as adults into education and the huge success stories that people make of their lives. And people there who graduated, the staff, the people from IT Carlow, and particularly Senator Sabone and Dr. Gilligan and Liz Waters, who's the wonderful coordinator of that centre, they were entitled to celebrate the achievement, their achievement, the community's achievement and their students. But I think there were a lot of people from outside the community there.
Okay, I just want to move on to the issue, I suppose, as well, which is that of water. And it seems to me that on this programme and other programmes we've been talking about water for months now. And I made the suggestion that if the government, but particularly the Labour Party, could, if you'll forgive the violence of the tone, I don't mean it that way, wring the neck of whoever was running the show in Irish Water for what turned out to be what is generally regarded as a bit of a shambles. Is this figure yesterday and what you gave in the Dáil last week, is that it?
Well, first of all, just let me say, as a member of the government and as Taoiseach, that no final agreement has been reached. But what I said, and I want to repeat again, the charge will be modest. And we're looking at, as was said, 2 different types of households. We have indicative figures from the regulator. And then in addition, people who wish to, households will be able to seek, as was set out in the budget, a payment of up to €100 via the Department of Social Protection, a water support services grant, a water conservation grant.
And John Walsh mentioned it.
That will bring the figures to very affordable levels for single households and for households where there are 2 or more people.
Now, presumably, well, we all know it because it was in your... Labour didn't want this at all, and John Walsh said that it caused a lot of friction between yourselves and Fine Gael.
I think, Marian, one of the problems, and since I've become Taoiseach, I've become more involved in this. The good story that Irish Water will have to tell is that as a country we have to invest a lot to improve our water quality, to have water for industry and tourism and so on. But the other part of water is that the wastewater and the sewage has to be removed. We have, I think, more than 40 locations in Ireland where sewage has actually been pumped almost directly into the mouth of rivers or into seas. And I mean, Minister Alan Kelly, who's the Minister for the Environment, is working on what will be a very positive package, on the one hand to invest in clean, healthy water, and on the other hand to invest in proper sewage treatment so we're not dumping effluent into our very precious rivers and coastline. Now, to do that, and I'd like to just maybe bring in a parallel here. People may remember a number of years ago, as a country, we needed to invest in road development. People, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening can remember the days that it took quite a lot of numbers of hours to get to either Galway or to get to Limerick or indeed Cork. When the national roads structure was brought together, with service level agreements with the county councils to do the more local stuff. Once we had that, we actually had a framework to plan a proper investment into road transport in Ireland. Now,
but
again,
if you take the remarks that Phil Hogan made when he was asked questions way back, he said, "I don't micromanage." And he clearly didn't micromanage. Are you suggesting that the new minister will micromanage?
Well, can I say that Alan Kelly, since he became minister, has been working flat out on this, and there's a whole series of different issues, but the big picture is clean, safe, healthy water at an affordable price and proper treatment of effluent and sewage in this country. If we're to stay a modern economy ahead of the curve, both for our own developing
the argument
businesses
against
and for foreign
that
investment.
is that we're paying for it anyway. We've paid for it for
We're
years.
We're paying for it through
taxes.
At the moment, a couple of billion a year of people's taxation goes into the capital programme, goes obviously into the day-to-day system. But if we get a national system like we did, you know, people often look back nowadays at the Celtic Tiger years, and one thing that can be pointed to is that we now have vastly improved road structures right around the country. Now, I want to ask people to think if we can get... You see, I think the problem...
How long do you anticipate this will be capped?
Oh, I would have thought for a very significant period of time.
Like?
Well, I would have thought for a minimum of 3 years, because I'll tell you why, Marian, and it's this. Once I had an opportunity as Taoiseach to begin to be briefed in some detail about this, it just seemed to me, from my own business experience in a previous life as an accountant, hold on, guys, this is all potentially great stuff for everybody. But I don't think you can do this in this kind of time frame. I think it really has to be rolled out. There's a third element, which I think is very, very important well, particularly I'd say to younger people and to a lot of women. We're wasting a lot of water. There's a lot of water wasted by not fixing the leaks. That's going to be the job of Irish Water. And I mean, everybody, if you leave the tap running when, you know, you're doing your teeth and so on in the morning, we have to learn to conserve water. If we do that, it's not that as a country we're not coming down with water. The cost is in the treatment. The cost is in treating the sewage and effluent.
Yeah, the problem for people is the paying.
Well, if the cost is modest, and I would put this to people...
You're still saying 200 or less.
I'm saying that I'm not...
Your personal opinion.
The final, I gave my personal opinion, and I'm very, very confident that we will see a very attractive, reasonable package, which, when you put together the gross cost that people will pay via Irish Water, and then if they wish, and it's only if people wish, they will be able to apply for a water conservation grant per household of roughly €100.
Okay, well, that seems to fit in with the story. When will we be told officially?
Well, I hope
Wednesday?
I hope on Wednesday.
Right.
But I have to say, because we're starting off a very big undertaking for the country. I was looking back at some of the ESB history when they started off in after the first 10 years of the state, and you know, it wasn't all roses all the way there. People had to be persuaded. But I do understand people's concerns, Marian.
Okay,
and
well,
there
as
are
long
fair
as we know
concerns that have been raised.
Right. And we should know by Wednesday, and in or around those figures. Clearly you can't say it for definite until you've agreed it with your colleagues. But I gather it was a rough ride between the two parties. Anyway, thank you very much for coming.
A lot of healthy democratic discussion.
Okay, that's one way to put it. Okay, on that note, we'll take a break.